SpeakerHub. And it's my pleasure and honor to welcome here with us Dr. Mark Goulston, who will share his insights and secrets about how to create a Gotta Book You. Now, this part of our webinar series is somewhat special, especially because it's the first time we have a medical doctor as a speaker with us. And second of all, because Mark has been extremely helpful and supportive of SpeakerHub from the very beginning. So we're eternally grateful to him, and also for the fact that he agreed to speak, because he's a very busy man with an impressive career and background. So just to give you a few words about what who Mark is, because he's an international speaker, he's a thought leader in the area of empathic communication, and he's regarded as a people hacker, and he'll tell us soon what that actually means. But he started his career as an interventional psychiatrist, focusing on suicide and violence intervention and prevention, and he's a UCLA professor of psychiatry. And then he extended his work to a fascinating area, which is training FBI and police hostage negotiators. And then he transited to the corporate world and NGOs. And his people hacking has actually been extended to hacking genius. And he's recently been speaking, writing, and providing webinars on the secret of Steve Jobs and how to think like a disruptor. And Mark has worked with an incredible number of companies and global brands, some of which you see on the screen. They are all over, not just the US, but international ones. So we're just tremendously helpful and happy to have him with us today. Mark is also the author of 4 books, the ones that you see on the screen, which are all broadly about listening and influencing and people hacking from various perspectives. So with that in mind, I'll give the floor to Mark so he can share with us what people hacking actually means. Mark, floor is yours.
Thank you, Andres. I'm so pleased to be with all of you. And yes, I didn't give myself that name, but other people say, you know, you're a people hacker. And what that means is that earlier in my career, when I was a suicide specialist and a violence interventionist, what I realized is I needed to get into their thinking. If I tried to convince them to stop an action, the more you try to convince people whose minds are kind of closed to you, the more they constrict. And so what I discovered is I needed to find a way to get into their minds and into their thinking, and then line up with the way they think. And what happened is, as I did that, and what you're going to learn from today is, as you do that with event planners, speaker bookers, anybody in your life, you're going to create their gotta have you, gotta book you, gotta invest in you, because this will also work if you're a company looking for investors, and it'll also work if you have employees where they say gotta follow you. And it's the same 4-step formula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to whet your appetite, and I'm going to give you several examples of what turns out to be a 4-step formula for creating gotta book you. It's the same 4-step formula that causes people to say, I got to buy from you, or I got to invest in you. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you 4 scenarios, and the next one is a video from Steve Jobs when he visited Xerox PARC, and see if you can hear 4 elements, and then after I go through my examples, I'll tell you what those elements are.
Shall I put the video?
Put the video on, Andres. Thank you.
And they showed me really 3 things. But I was so blinded by the first one that I didn't even really see the other 2. One of the things they showed me was object-oriented programming. They showed me that, but I didn't even see that. The other one they showed me was really a networked computer system. They had over 100 Alto computers, all networked, using email, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't even see that. I was so blinded by the first thing they showed me, which was the graphical user interface. I thought it was the best thing I'd ever seen in my life. Now, remember, it was very flawed. What we saw was incomplete. They'd done a bunch of things wrong, but we didn't know that at the time. It's still, though, they had the germ of the idea was there, and they'd done it very well. And within, 10 minutes, it was obvious to me that all computers would work like this someday.
So let's see if you can guess what those 4 elements are. But to whet your appetite even more, I'm going to give you some other examples. So you saw the Steve Jobs example there. And in the middle is a fellow named Eli Broad, and Fedex is on the right. So those will be the other examples. Eli Broad is one of the wealthiest philanthropists in Los Angeles in the United States. And if you ask people about Eli Broad, what he thinks of people who are psychologists, he's a very busy businessman, and people would say, I think psychology type stuff is something that doesn't interest him. Also, he's not really that known for giving a lot of credit to a lot of people. I mean, he's not a bad guy, but when he constructs things or donates, it's the Eli Broad and with his wife Eli and Edith Broad Foundation or something like that. So see if you can recognize the different elements, and because when I ask people, what do you think the chances are that Eli Broad would quote a psychological type person and then give them credit, anybody who knows him would say it's highly unlikely. But if you look up Goulston, Goulston, Eli Broad, the first link goes to this article. It was in Forbes, and he wrote an article directed at other billionaires, and it started out with, wealth is what you take from the world, worth is what you give back. There's my name. And the article starts off, the very first sentence, that's one of my favorite quotes about philanthropy. So here's the backstory. And again, see if you can think of what the 4 elements are that will lead to creating Gotta Book You. So I had met Eli because at some informal setting, and we discussed some management issue because he found out something about me, and I gave him some suggestions that he thought were helpful. And so that allowed me to make a call to him and have him take my call. Most of these people are impossible to get through to, but because I had that interaction with him, he took my call. And this is how the call went. I said, Eli, I don't know if you remember me. And he said, yeah, Mark, I'm in a rush. Now, Eli is really in a rush. He does amazing things. And he said, what's this about? And I said, are you ever going to write a book on your foundation? Because that's what his focus is. And he says, I don't know, Mark, I'm in a rush. And then I said, Eli, 7 seconds, wealth is what you take from the world, worth is what you give back. He pauses and says, say that again, Mark? And I said, wealth is what you take from the world, worth is what you give back. And then he says, that's pretty good, Mark. And then he said, well, I got to go and thank you. And I said, Eli, you can take the quote, turn it into a book. If you ever write a book, it's a good title. Don't give me credit. You do so much for the city. I just thought it was something that I wanted to give to you that you could use, no strings attached. 6 months later, Forbes magazine calls me up and says, we have a quote attributed to you about an article written by Eli Broad, and here's the quote, and we just wanted to check to see if that's accurate. And then I said, yes, that's accurate, and voila, there it was in Forbes. So there were 4 steps that he followed to create gotta use that quote. Here's the next slide. If I were to ask people online, how many of you will see a Federal Express truck today. Actually, you can actually, for the people who are attending, if you want to say yes, yes with your name, I just want to get a sense of it. But if you're in America, every day you see Federal Express trucks. So if you want to write in, you can say yes, so we can get an idea if I'm reading the audience correctly. Now, when I make presentations and I ask audiences, how many of you will see a truck? Nearly everybody raises their hand. And when I ask audiences, do you know the secret of the FedEx logo? About a third of the room raises their hand, and about 2/3 of the room doesn't know what I'm talking about. And so what I then say to the people who don't know the secret of the FedEx logo is cross your arms if you don't know the secret. Just cross your arms. And when I show the logo, I want the people who know the secret to the FedEx logo to scream it out. And I guess in the chat we can't actually see it, because I was going to say, how many of you know the secret? And then you could type it in. But let's see. Well, someone's already done it. So there you go. See, Peggy, Peter, Rob, a bunch of people. Here's someone, Bree, I know, but only from Mark's book. So the secret to the FedEx logo is the white arrow between the E and the X. And if you look at that logo, what's going to happen is, if you hadn't recognized it, you're going to look and and if your arms were crossed, you would, in an audience, you would uncross your arms and you would lean into it and you would sort of stare at it and squint your eyes and you would say to yourself, my God, I never noticed that before. And so, and now that you've noticed it, there's a good chance that when you're out in the street and you see the FedEx logo, there's a good chance that you will always notice it now. That was a paradigm shift. That was disruptive to the way you look at this logo. To take it a step further, if you were stuck in traffic and this is in front of you and you're with someone and you're out of small talk, what are you going to say to the person next to you? You know what you're going to say. What you're going to say is, do you see the arrow on the FedEx truck? Because all of us like to be kind of smarty pants. And some of you are probably chuckling because you would do that. And some of you are chuckling because you already have done that. So those are 4 elements that also create, let's see, gotta look at it and gotta tell other people. So here in the next step, I summarize what the 4 elements are to creating Gotta Book You, and I'm going to go through all the examples that I mentioned to further demonstrate it. The 4 steps to creating Gotta Book You is you have to trigger in the event planner or the speaker booker or whoever's going to hire you, whoa, wow, yes. Whoa, wow, yes. So I'm going to tell you, let's define them, and then I'm going to go through to all the examples that I showed you. So what's whoa about? Whoa is getting people's attention. You know you've created whoa when you're talking to someone, they seem distracted, and they suddenly say that again. So you broke through into their distraction, but they weren't really listening, and they say that again. If you're giving a talk to an audience and people are tweeting or texting, and they hear that, hear something that causes them to go, whoa, they're going to elbow the person next to them and say, what did he say? What did she say? So whoa is basically, I can't believe what I'm reading, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing. It's also, I can't believe what I'm feeling. When I used to work with suicidal patients, I found a way to go into their suicidal feeling with them. And basically, I gave them no solutions. I just kept them company. and I kept them company when they felt alone in this hellish time in their life. And so they couldn't believe what they were feeling, which is they were feeling the aloneness in where they were living had gone away. And when people feel less alone in that awful state of mind, they start to feel hopeful. Next is, wow. So when people take a second take and they about what they've heard, read, or seen, or felt, they say to themselves, that's amazing, astonishing, unbelievable. In other words, it didn't disappoint. When they check to take that second hit, it didn't disappoint, and they go, wow, that's amazing, that's astonishing, unbelievable. And then the next thing they think is, that's too good not to use. I got to write that down. In fact, when I've shared whoa, wow, yes with groups, and I would guess that for the people listening here, that at least a third of you wrote down the whoa, wow, yes. I can remember a time when I met with the CEO of Harvard Business Publishing, wonderful fellow, and we were having a conversation. And as soon as I mentioned, whoa, wow, yes, he took out a sheet of paper and wrote it down. And then a little bit later, I met with a fellow named Art Kleiner. He's the editor-in-chief of Strategy and Business, kind of a competitor to a Harvard Business Review. And same thing. He took out a piece of paper and he wrote it down. So the whoa, wow, yes is a whoa, wow, yes. And so means I got to hold on to this. I got to do something with this. I'm not sure what that is. And then yes is when people line up and they see how the whoa and the wow and the thinking about it led to an action, they take action. So you're going to be trying to create whoa, wow, yes in the minds of the event planner or speaker booker. So as we go back to those examples that we had before, and let's see. So Steve Jobs, what was the example there? If you remember the video, he basically said, we visited Xerox PARC, and I didn't even see two of the three things they showed me, because I was blinded by the first thing. What I saw was the graphical user interface. So that was his whoa. Then he said it was the best thing I'd ever seen in my life, and which means that's astonishing or amazing, unbelievable. And then he says, it was flawed, but it worked, and it worked very well. And that's when he thought, there's something about this I got to use. And then his final thing he said was, and within 10 minutes of seeing the graphical user interface, I knew that all computers would work this way someday. And if we played the video again, which we're not, when he says the word someday, he's humble. And the reason he's humble is he's reliving the moment when he saw that he could go from a hustler to a visionary, because he saw that by making technology fun, like a pinball machine, like you're interacting with icons, that he had saw this is how we're going to take technology away from business to business and turn it to business to consumer, and we're going to own the world, which is exactly what happened. Now, something else you might want to write down that's not in the slides is there's a term now called user experience, and Steve Jobs wasn't even around when that term came out. I think he passed away before that. That's come into the vernacular of companies and marketing. Yet he defined, I think, the 5 things that create the best user experience. And you might want to write these things down. There are also things that feed into the creating gotta book you. And the 5 things that you need to do to create sort of an amazing user experience that he saw is whatever your service or product, or in this case, whatever your talk is about, it needs to be relevant. It needs to be relevant to what the conference is about, what the person who's interviewing you is trying to achieve. It's got to be relevant to their wanting to bring in someone that will help them with their career. It's got to be relevant to them not bringing in someone who would disappoint an audience, and then people would come back to him or her with all kinds of criticism. So it's got to be relevant. The other 4 elements are it needs to be simple, reliable, fun, and beautiful. Simple, reliable, fun, and beautiful. Why is that? Why does it have to be simple? Well, we all live in silos, and we may be passionate and have a deep understanding of our silo, but when we're crossing silos, all other people care about is that whatever we're sharing with them, that it's simple. One of the big mistakes that people in IT do is they try to teach people outside of their technology silo, in the business silos or the sales silos. They try to teach them about technology when basically all these other people want to know, just tell me what buttons to press. One of my favorite quotes of all time about how limited people are in their silos comes from Jack Welch. When he, in the 1990s, when he was at GE, and GE was behind other companies embracing the internet. And one of his quotes was, "I avoided the internet because I didn't know how to type." And I think that's a funny quote, but it says a lot. And so whatever you're coming up with, it has to be simple. If it's complicated, especially an event booker, if it's complicated, it's all over the place, they're not going to book you. Reliable. Reliable means that it has to be consistent. You have to deliver what you say you will. One of the worst ways to hurt your speaker's career is they book you for something to fulfill a certain expectation, and then you deliver a speech that was way offline. And so that causes the event booker or the person who booked you from that company to be pulled on the red carpet afterwards and say, why the heck did you bring that person in? So it's got to be, and that's the relevance of it, but it needs to be, as we said, simple and reliable. Next, it needs to be fun. So part of what Steve Jobs was experiencing when he saw the graphical user interface, he said, this is fun. This is what consumers are going to like. And because it's fun, they will try this. The final element that Steve Jobs knew about was it needs to be beautiful. Now, maybe that came from his calligraphy background, but someone once told me that when something's fun, it puts a smile on your face. But when something's beautiful, it puts a smile in your heart. I mean, you're just in awe. It takes your breath away. So try to remember those things in whatever you deliver, whenever you're trying to create gotta anything, that it be relevant, simple, reliable, fun, and beautiful. Now let's go to Eli Broad. What was the whoa, wow, yes for him? Well, he was in a rush. He was preoccupied. And then I said 7 seconds, and I said, wealth is what you take from the world. Worth is what you give back. What was his response? Say that again, Mark. So that was a whoa, I got through. And then when I said it to him, he said, that's pretty good, Mark. So that was the wow. And then I didn't know about the yes, but obviously he wrote it down that this is too good not to use somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to use it. And then Forbes magazine came to him and said, do you have a quote? And so that's when he said yes. Now after that, if we go to the Fedex, if you're someone who didn't know the secret of it, and then the white arrow was pointed out to you, part of what you're going to do, and you may open your arms when you see it, is you're going to go, whoa, I never saw that. The wow is going to be, that's amazing. That's astonishing. I've seen that logo every day for the last 10 years, and I never knew that. By the way, that logo is in the top 3 logos of all logos for the last 50 years. And then, what's the about? Well, the is, well, I'm not going to forget that. When I look at the logo, I'm going to see the white arrow, but the is, oh, I can be a smarty pants. I'm with someone, I have nothing to say in the car, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to point out the logo to them. So, so I hope you're getting a sense of how these things work, and that you have to create the same whoa, wow, yes in Bookers. So let's move along. And
Mark, maybe I could ask a question here.
yes,
Does this relate to the speaker application or pitch you put forward, or it's more about the content of your talk?
I think right from the get-go, it's got to be as soon as they read something from you, it's got to be, here's what it has to be. It can't be better than other people. You have to be different than other people. People remember what's different. They don't remember what's better because everybody says they're better. Now, the key is when you're dealing with a booker or an event planner, they don't want to take a chance, because if they take a chance, it's going to backfire on them. So they're looking for different, but different kind of in a safe way. And when they're thinking, by the way, and we'll go through this, when they're thinking, what they're saying is they're going, whoa, wow, that's different. And I think we could take a chance on that and it won't backfire and get me fired. So I think everything that that people find out about you should trigger, whoa, wow, yes. I give talks around the country to marketing and innovation conferences. And there the title of this talk is How to Create Gotta Have It. And the end of it, I say, go back to your marketing and advertising department. So for you speakers, go back to your webpage and look at it. And if you're, and put yourself in the shoes of an event planner, and if they see your webpage, does it create whoa wow, or does it create never mind, that's nice, in which they're going to pass? Something else you might want to write down is a concept called mental real estate. Now, mental real estate means that when you come up with a term that is familiar with people, you get into their mind, and then when you're in their mind, if you repurpose it, you have more mental real estate, and so you have more traction. A friend of mine told me about mental real estate, who was the chief designer of Disney Tokyo and Disney Paris. His name was Tony Baxter. And he said a best example of mental real estate that he could think of was Pirates of the Caribbean. He said Pirates of the Caribbean owns the word pirates in the minds of kids. So when kids think of pirates, they think of Pirates of the Caribbean. So Disney owns pirates. I've written a bunch of books, but my book that has the most mental real estate is Talking to Crazy. In fact, when I mention it to other people, everyone I mention Talking to Crazy to, and I'm compassionate. This is not about mental illness. This is about the people that drive you crazy, and you hope won't show up for the holidays. And so when I mention that book, Talking to Crazy, it's immediately familiar to them. People smile, and I say, what are you smiling about? And they say, I think I do that every day. So whatever people see needs to create mental real estate. And so your whoa, wow, yes should be something that is sort of familiar, but isn't. A friend of mine who actually wrote the foreword to my book, Just Listen, is someone many of you know named Keith Ferrazzi. Now, Keith wrote a book called Never Eat Alone. If you think of those 3 words, never eat alone, those all together have mental real estate. So see if you can take that into consideration in as you're developing your marketing materials. One
This
of the
is
reasons
totally true because every time I eat alone, I remember that book. So he did a great job with that.
he did a great job, and a plug for SpeakerHub. One of the reason I got involved with SpeakerHub is because, and I got a VIP, a paid profile, is it's the best profile on me as a speaker anywhere. My LinkedIn profile is a mess. And you can go to my markgoulston.com or goulstongroup.com thing, and those are sort of, they're still messy. They're not a total mess. But SpeakerHub, I've never been to a site, even with the speakers bureaus that represent me, where every step made sense. And so when I filled out my profile, I really felt like I was following a roadmap to present myself in the best way. And if you look at profiles, you can look at my profile. It makes it really easy for an event planner to quickly get an idea of who I am and a sample of it. That's part of why I'm promoting SpeakerHub, because it can do that for you. And you should certainly take advantage of the fact that you can get a free you can get a free profile there. It's the LinkedIn of speaker hubs. So, but let's continue in the interest of time here. So now I'm going to take a chance because I'm a neuroscientist and a biologist. So please cut me some slack because I'm going to get a little educational about why you need whoa before wow. As I said, I was a zoology major before I went to medical school. And what this basically says is that we evolved from a one-celled animal that didn't have a brain into a human being that has a brain. And many of you have heard of this breakdown of our brains. Functionally and even anatomically, we have a primate thinking brain, we have a mammalian feeling brain, and a reptilian fight or flight brain. And so when you're dealing with an event planner or a booker, what happens is their brains are hardwired together. Our human brain was 250,000 years old, our mammalian 65 million, and our reptilian 245 million. An interesting insight is mammals get stress ulcers because they have an emotional brain, reptiles don't. So you can stress out your cat or dog and make them sick. Reptiles, it's just fight or flight. So what you're up against with an event planner is they're under pressure. And so if you can imagine that that pyramid having an eye on top of it, and so they're kind of looking at the world through tunnel vision. And again, the tunnel vision is I don't want to book someone who will get me in trouble. I don't want to book someone that's going to backfire. But I am on the lookout for a person who could be that special speaker where my boss would say to me, that was an amazing speaker that you booked. And so here's what you want to do here's what you want to trigger inside that event planner or speaker book. So what's the whoa about? You need to get in and through their overloaded and overcrowded mind. To do this, you need them to have this reaction, whoa, stop everything. And this is worth taking a second look and a second listen. So grade yourself, put yourself in the shoes of an event planner or booker. Imagine what they're looking at it. Whether it's a cover letter, whether it's your profile, whether it's your profile in SpeakerHub, and imagine what they, ask yourself if what they're seeing creates whoa. And again, remember, it's about being different, not better than. And then what you need to do is create wow. So after they take a second look at what you're about, they go, wow, I can't believe what you're talking about. So for me, one of the titles of my Steve Jobs talk is Hacking Steve Jobs. In fact, I went to an innovation conference that I spoke at, and a friend of mine said, how many people are going to be there? I said, oh, about 500, and I'm giving this talk. And she said, let me see your business card. So I had a business card, and it said the Goulston Group. And she said, when's the conference? I said, 3 days. She said, go to Fedex Kinko and print up 250 cards, and all the card says is hacking Steve Jobs. And and underneath it you can say creating gotta have it, and just put your name and your email. That's all. And because what she said is people collect cards at conferences and they throw away most of them. They'll probably hold on to the cards from the big companies because they hope the big company could hire them. And what she was saying is, you know, you're reasonably well known, but the Goulston Group is going to be a card they throw away. But when they're going through their cards and they see hacking Steve Jobs, they're not going to throw that away. So I hope you're getting an idea of what you need to do. I'm giving you more formula than the actual specific things, but I'm hoping that you can follow the formula and that it makes sense for you. So then after whoa, what you need to create is And what's the Well, to reiterate, it's this won't get me in trouble. Someone's not going to come back at me and say, what were you thinking when you booked that speaker? And but the you're hoping for is the one that Steve Jobs had when he visited Xerox PARC, that Eli Broad had when he heard wealth is what you take from the world, worth is what you give back, and that Fedex kind of novelty thing, this is too good not to use and be a smarty pants when I'm in the car next. So that's what you have to create in them. And a good exercise, even though it will be painful, is look at your materials, look at your profile. Every time you have a conversation with someone, rate yourself after the conversation on a scale of 1 to 10. How well did I create whoa, wow, or yes? And what could I do better going forward to create it in them? And then if you can do that, of course, the final thing you're wanting to do is yes, that that what they've learned and seen about you is such that it's all lined up, and just like an Apple customer or a billionaire who doesn't have time for people like me, or you're in busy traffic, and now what's going to happen is you're going to have a mindful relaxation. Every time you're in traffic and you're angry and you see the FedEx logo, you're going to look at that white arrow and you're going to smile and you're going to say, son of a gun, there it is again. And it's going to put a smile on your face even though you hate rush hour. And so that's what you want to do. So finally, here's your homework. Put yourself in the position of the event planner. So the event planner has been given an assignment for a particular conference. Find out everything you can about the conference. And a good question to ask an event planner, if you're able to actually speak with one, this is if you have a conversation, is someone in the conversation say, can I ask you a hypothetical question? And they may be a little annoyed, but they'll probably say yes. And what you say to them is, I'd like you to imagine that it's a year from now and your boss is evaluating kind of what you did for the company and your decisions you make. And a year from now, your boss says, remember that person you booked for that conference we had? People are still talking about it. I don't know how you found that person, but that was incredibly amazing. If you find us a couple more like that, I'm going to promote you. It was that amazing. What you want to avoid is, and you say to them, I think what you want to avoid as an event planner is a year from now, people still being critical of you and saying, why did you book that person? What were you thinking? So I think if you can have that conversation it will cause the person you're talking to look up to the ceiling to think about it, because it's a very good question that nobody asks them. And when you help people to clarify their thinking that nobody asks them about, they're grateful, and they'll be grateful to you. So talking about being better than or being different than, when you can actually help the other person be successful in a way that really gives them a filter, they're being grateful for you helping them is going to make you different. And I think we've covered that in your homework. So I think we have a little time left, Andres, and we can do a Q&A, and I'll leave you this thing, but any questions that we have?
Here's one, which I think is a nice and relevant one about Paul's asking, can the yes format, can it work in an email? How would you construct an email that goes through that thought process?
Well, one of the things you can do is, as you're going through emails, and you're clicking through the ones you delete, click on the ones that you haven't deleted. And when you click on them, drill down in your head, why did I click on them? And then when you click on them, if you click through that email, then they've hooked you and they're building momentum towards you. Like, I know there's a lot of people who sort of deal with anxiety by spending, and you can already see the Black Friday deals ramping up. And people are, at least in America, feeling so frustrated, they can't wait to spend some money, even if they don't have it, to make them feel better. And so I'm guessing that the people that applies to, as soon as they see Black Friday sales, they're clicking on that. So it's sort of a mental exercise, but the way you can do that is to drill down and, using your own mind, ask yourself, what created wow for me in the emails I received. Also, one of the things that one of my mentors mentioned to me, Dr. Warren Bennis, who was a big leadership guru, he said, be a first-class noticer. Because when you notice something, you become absorbed in it. When you look, watch, and see, you're passive. So if I was you looking at that slide, I'd notice the picture of Mark, and I'd notice, what the heck is that on his left shoulder? Well, what was happening is I was striking a pose where I had a sport jacket over my left shoulder, and it was a full picture. You could see that I was holding it with one of my fingers. But if you notice that, you'd say, that's an odd picture. In fact, he needs to change that. I like the SpeakerHub logo much more. So if you can train yourself as you're going through your world, and it takes a certain discipline, but what is it that you notice? If you go to other speakers' platforms, if you go to other speakers' platforms on SpeakerHub, what is it that you notice that grabs your attention? So you can use this as a filter anywhere in life.
I think that's a very valid point of reverse engineering things that you find attractive, find useful, find catching your eye, whether that's a profile, whether that's an email, or anything else. I think if there is no other question from the audience, I'd just say, in respect of the time, we'll probably conclude here. And a huge thanks to Mark for sharing his insights and his approach with us, and this four-step method. I think it's very insightful to be conscious of this thought process that event planners have. And of course, you're more than welcome to reach out to him, or we're very happy to connect you with Mark if you have any other follow-up questions. As always, the recording will be available in the next few days, and the transcript will be put online so you can read it at your ease if you'd like to revise the four steps or any other parts of Mark's presentation. So Mark, a huge thanks to you for your time and availability. And I think we'll conclude here. Feel free to join us at the next event, the next webinar, which I'm going to be running as not just as moderator, but as speaker in about a week. So Mark,
do we have time for a preview of something that to whet everyone's appetite?
30 seconds, yeah.
Okay. I hacked into Steve Jobs about creating yes. What happened is recently I hacked into how he built and created Apple. And I'm about to do a one-man tour, like a show, a presentation, where I speak like Steve Jobs. I speak as Steve Jobs, and there are 10 steps that will help anybody in any company create an insanely great company. So that'll probably be coming out in the spring, but stay tuned. I think I'm going to be calling it Channeling Steve Jobs, 10 Steps to Build an Incredibly Great Company.
Mark will be more than happy to promote that and give visibility to that book as soon as it's out. So thank you again so much for being here with us. And for everyone else from around the world, I notice you've been joining us from South Africa all the way to the US and Europe. Truly appreciate that. So see you hopefully in a week at the next episode. Mark, thanks again.
Thank you.